Hi, I'm Joanne Mosier, and I am the owner and operator of a company called Accelerated Test Prep and Tutoring Services. Very small company that I run out of my home. I started it about 20 years ago. I've been a teacher my entire life. And when one of my sons came home and said, "Mom, I don't know what to do for the ACT," I said, "Let's figure this out." So I sat down and wrote a course and started experimenting on his friends, and it worked out. So I've been doing this for quite a while now. I consider myself an expert on the ACT, which is won't even get me a cup of coffee at Starbucks, but whatever. So I'm going to tell you, I can't be with you tonight. I'm sorry. My husband and I are traveling, so we decided to do it this way. But my phone number will be in several places for you. If you have any questions, you can call me anytime and ask me what you need to know. So I'm going to give you some fast facts about the ACT. You might know that during COVID, the ACT was no longer required for many schools. That has changed. It is now required for most of them. I can't tell you exactly which ones aren't requiring it. You'd have to look on their website to find out. But I do know that they are using it for scholarships. So if you want your child to have a scholarship, they probably need an ACT score. Some schools will take an SAT, but again, you need to look on their website. SAT is much more popular on the West and East Coast. The ACT is typically the whole middle of the country. So typically, a student takes their first ACT in their junior year, and I tell people to go in blind. Don't do any prep beforehand. Just go in and take it, because if you do prep beforehand, it won't quite make sense to the student, but when they take the test and then they do some prep, it makes a whole lot of sense. So they could take it in October or December of their junior year, and actually October is what we call a test information release date, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. But then they're ready for the school district test that they take on March 10th of 2026 if your students are a junior this year. If they're younger, good for you for getting a jump on this. So basically the ACT consists of 4 sections: English, math, reading, and science. And then there still is an optional writing, and they have made science optional. My advice at this point in time is to still take the science test. I'm a little leery about what colleges might think about not having it, so it wouldn't kill them to take it. The writing is really not of great importance unless it is a school that requires the writing, because then you need to have it, and you can't just take the writing separately. So they would need to take that with the rest of the test. Now, the ACT has changed in the past year. The scores still go up to 36, but they have lowered the amount of time the test takes. They've got 44 fewer questions. The length of the test goes from 195 minutes to 125 minutes, which is huge for most kids because it's really difficult for them to take that long of a test. As I said, the science will be optional. If a student does take the science section, they will get a science score and a STEM score. When they take the English section, they get an English score and a language arts score. So the math choices reduce from 5 choices to 4, which is what it is for every other part of the test. So that makes sense to do. They also are getting a little more time per question. The reading passages are much shorter, and they can take the test either on paper or online. It's really up to them. A lot of students don't like online. I don't like online, but that's because I'm old. So what it tests is what your kids have learned in school. Now, so why do I have this program? Well, because our schools are teaching some of these skills in middle school, and they're not reviewing them in high school, and the kids may not know them. For example, in English, they do a ton of grammar, punctuation, subject-verb agreement, pronouns, parts of speech. Kids haven't done that since probably 7th grade. And in math, no matter what math class they're in, there is so much math. There's pre-algebra, algebra, geometry, little bit of trigonometry, lots of word problems, which most kids don't like. So it can be difficult to take the math test too. We're happy that it's dropped to 4 answers instead of 5. So it's offered 7 times a year nationally, and it's offered 1 time a year at the school. They can retake the ACT up to 12 times. I've really never known anyone that's taken it more than 6, and that was my daughter, so I could make her do that. Strategies are super important for this test because they don't know how to take it otherwise. It's difficult to manage their time and their brain power. And then they also need essential learnings for English and math. The basic thing that they need is practice. So I recommend everyone get a practice book. I use one that's called Essential ACT. I call it Big Red because it's about this big. And it has 6 practice tests in it, and that's exactly what they need. Now, a test information release means that for an extra fee, you can get back a copy of your student's test along with their answers and the correct answers. That's offered 3 times a year in October, April, and June. And you can request it for up to 6 months after the test. They will send it to you digitally. And what's really handy about that is that the student can go through and see what they were strong on and what they were weak on. A lot of times with students I've worked with, they bring it to me after they have finished, and I go through it and analyze what they need to study next. So I help them build up a study plan. I'm not going to talk about my particular program because that's not why I'm here, although if you want to call me and set your student up, that would be great. But, so I've given you what the basics are. The next test that you can register for is the October test, but I think we've already passed the deadline for that. But when you've passed a deadline for registering, you can still do late registration. Of course, there's an extra fee for that. And if you miss that deadline, you can still do photo and standby deadline. And I will tell you that in the 20 years I've been doing this, I've never had a student not get in going standby. It's as if the airplane has 10 extra seats all the time. So they always get to go standby. They just have to wait until they find out where someone didn't show up for a class. So after that, you can register for the test in December, February. Then they will be taking it in March in school. There's a national test in April, in June, and in July. And I will tell you that the July test is a great time to take it because they've just finished junior year. They're past the craziness of the end of the year, which is when the June test typically is, but they still don't have summer brain. So that's important. However, many schools don't want to open their doors to outside people during the summer, so registration is tight for that test. So I know that's a long way away, but if you think going down the road that might be something you want to do, register as soon as you can. All of this information is online at ACT. You can find everything you need to know. And let's see, normally this is when I would open it up to questions, but you can't ask me any questions unless you want to give me a call. I do have a handout for you that has all the information that I just gave you. I'm also going to have a math handout that covers all the skills that the kids need to know for this test, so they can take a look at that. But as I've said, practice is super important, and call me with your questions. Thank you for your attention.